What in God's name are you doing? The voice cut through the nursery like a blade. Jonathan Blackwell stood frozen in the doorway, his expensive suit wrinkled from another sleepless night. Before him sat Rosa Martinez, the household staff member he'd hired just weeks ago, cradling his 3-month-old son David against her chest. Her uniform was unbuttoned, the infant nursing peacefully in her arms. She hummed softly, eyes closed, as if this moment were sacred, natural. Jonathan's vision blurred with rage. Get away from my child. Rosa's eyes snapped open, her body tensing protectively around the baby. She gently detached David, who began to fuss immediately. Mr. Blackwell, please, let me explain. Explain what? Jonathan's voice cracked with fury. How you decided to feed my son like some wet nurse. Who gave you permission? Rosa stood carefully, David still whimpering in her arms. He hasn't eaten properly in 3 days. The formula, he keeps rejecting it. He's getting weaker. I don't want your excuses. I was a pediatric nurse before this, Rosa continued, her voice steadier now. I still produce milk from when I lost my daughter. He needed. The slap came without warning. Sharp, brutal, sending Rosa stumbling sideways while she clutched David protectively. The nursery fell silent except for the baby's soft cries. Rosa's cheek burned, but she didn't shed a tear. She simply stared at Jonathan with quiet dignity, then turned her body to shield the child completely. How dare you touch what isn't yours? Jonathan's hands shook at his sides. Someone like me? Rosa's voice was barely above a whisper, but it carried steel. You mean poor? Hispanic? A woman who knows what it means to lose a child? Jonathan flinched but said nothing. My Isabella died 2 months ago, Rosa continued, tears threatening but not falling. I held her as she slipped away. I know what hunger looks like in a baby's eyes. I saw that same look in David yesterday. She moved to the crib, placing the now quiet infant inside. David's face was peaceful for the first time in days, his tiny stomach finally full. I'll pack my things, Rosa said quietly, walking toward the door. Jonathan remained motionless, staring down at his son. David slept soundly, no longer the restless, crying child who'd kept the entire household awake for nights. Outside the nursery, the mansion felt colder. Rosa's footsteps echoed through marble hallways as staff members averted their eyes. In her small quarters, she pulled out her worn suitcase, hands trembling slightly. 20 minutes later, Jonathan found himself back in the nursery. David slept peacefully, tiny fists relaxed, breathing steady. No crying, no desperate hunger, just peace. He sank into the rocking chair his late wife Sarah had chosen. The same chair where Sarah had nursed David in those precious first weeks before the complications took her life. Jonathan stared at his hands. The same hands that had once held Sarah through difficult nights, now stained with the memory of striking the woman who'd saved his son. A soft knock interrupted his thoughts. His mother, Eleanor Blackwell, entered carrying a tea service. I heard the commotion, she said simply, setting the tray down. She was... Jonathan began, then stopped. She was feeding your son, Eleanor finished. The son who hasn't slept through the night in a week. Jonathan looked away. She overstepped. Did she? Eleanor's voice carried decades of authority. Or did she do what the rest of us couldn't? David stirred slightly, making soft baby sounds in his sleep. I made a mistake, didn't I? Jonathan whispered. Eleanor moved to the window. Your father made similar mistakes. Pride disguised as protection. Control masquerading as care. What should I do? You should ask her to stay. Not as staff, as David's caregiver. Someone who understands what he needs. That evening, Jonathan found Rosa in the servants' quarters, packing the last of her belongings. Her cheek still bore the faint mark of his hand. Don't go, he said quietly. She looked up, wary. I was wrong. Completely wrong. David needs you and I need to make this right. Rosa studied his face, searching for sincerity. I won't accept another blow. Not from anyone. You won't receive one. I give you my word. After a long pause, Rosa nodded slowly. For David. But things change from here. Everything changes, Jonathan agreed. To all our friends watching, we're on a mission to reach our first 1,000 subscribers. Your one click can bring us closer. If you enjoy stories like this, kindly do us a favor by subscribing to our channel. Subscribing helps us keep going and share even more powerful ones, and don't forget to tell us where you are watching from. Now back to our story. 2 weeks later, Rosa had settled into her new role as David's primary caregiver. The mansion felt different, lighter somehow. David thrived under her care, growing stronger and more alert each day. It was while organizing the nursery that Rosa found it. A small wooden toy train hidden behind old blankets in the closet. The initials LB were carved into its side. Mrs. Eleanor, Rosa approached the elder woman in the garden. I found this in David's room. Do you know whose it was? Eleanor's face went pale. She took the train with trembling hands. That belonged to Liam, she whispered. Jonathan's older brother. Rosa frowned. Jonathan has a brother? He never mentioned. Had, Eleanor corrected. Liam died when he was 7. Or so we told everyone. The weight of those words settled between them like a stone. That afternoon, Rosa discovered more. Old photographs tucked behind books, showing Jonathan as a toddler beside an older boy with the same dark eyes. In every picture, Liam appeared gentle, sensitive, different from other children his age. Eleanor found Rosa in the library, surrounded by the hidden photographs. You're wondering why we hid him, Eleanor said, sitting heavily in a nearby chair. The question crossed my mind. Eleanor's voice grew distant. My husband was a man who valued perfection. Liam was special. He spoke differently, moved differently. Richard couldn't bear having an imperfect son reflect on the family name. Rosa's chest tightened. So you sent him away? To a private facility upstate. Richard told everyone Liam had died in an accident. We even held a fake funeral. Eleanor's eyes filled with tears. Sarah, Jonathan's wife, she found out the truth before David was born. She tried to locate Liam. But what? She died before she could bring him home. That evening, Rosa confronted Jonathan in his study. She placed the wooden train on his desk. Tell me about Liam. Jonathan's face went ashen. Where did you find this? In David's nursery. Your mother told me the truth. Jonathan slumped in his chair. I was 3 when they took him. I barely remember him, but I remember crying when he left. They told me he went to heaven. He might still be alive, Jonathan. After 35 years? Even if he is, he probably doesn't remember us. Rosa pulled out her phone, showing him a website. Pine Haven Care Facility. It's the only long-term care institution in the area that matches your mother's description. They might have records. 3 days later, Jonathan and Rosa made the drive to Pine Haven. The facility was modest but well-maintained, surrounded by pine trees and walking paths. Dr. Patricia Williams, the director, met them in her office. I've been here for 20 years, she said, reviewing their inquiry. We do have a resident who matches that description. Liam Bradford. He came to us as a child under a different family arrangement. Rosa's heart raced. Bradford. Many of our long-term residents were given new surnames for privacy. Liam he's gentle, artistic. He helps with our garden program. Can we see him? Jonathan's voice was barely a whisper. Dr. Williams hesitated. He's never had family visitors. This would be quite overwhelming. Through the window they saw him. A man in his 40s, kneeling by a flower bed, carefully tending roses. His face held the same gentle features from the childhood photographs, aged but unmistakably familiar. That's him, Jonathan breathed. They approached slowly. Liam looked up from his work, squinting in the afternoon sun. Hello, he said softly. Are you here to see the flowers? I planted these myself. Jonathan knelt beside his brother. They're beautiful, Liam. I'm Jonathan. Something flickered in Liam's eyes. Recognition, perhaps, or hope. Jonathan, he repeated slowly. I had a brother named Jonathan once. But he was very small. I grew up, Jonathan said, his voice breaking. Liam studied his face for a long moment. Then, tentatively, he reached out and touched Jonathan's cheek. You have the same eyes, he whispered. Are you really him? Yes, and I've come to take you home. As they embraced, Rosa stepped back, tears streaming down her face. Sarah's hidden mission was finally complete. But as they prepared to leave Pinehaven, Dr. Williams pulled Rosa aside. There's something else, she said quietly. Documents about how Liam came to us. You'll want to see them. The documents Dr. Williams provided were devastating. Medical records showing Liam had been falsely diagnosed with severe developmental delays. Payment records proving the Blackwell family had bribed doctors to sign commitment papers. And most damning of all, a confession letter from Sarah, never sent, detailing her discovery of the conspiracy. She knew, Rosa said, reading Sarah's letter aloud in Jonathan's study. She found evidence that your father paid Dr. Henderson to declare Liam incompetent. Liam sat nearby, still adjusting to being back in the mansion after 4 decades. He moved cautiously through rooms he'd once called home, touching furniture as if confirming its reality. Eleanor entered, carrying a photo album. I've been hiding these for 35 years, she said, setting it down. Pictures of Liam before he was taken. Sarah found them and threatened to go public. Jonathan flipped through pages showing a normal, healthy child. Liam at birthday parties, playing with toys, laughing with his younger brother. We have to expose this, Rosa said firmly. Not just for Liam, but for every family that's been destroyed by this kind of abuse. The family reputation, Eleanor began, deserves to be destroyed, Jonathan interrupted. If it was built on lies. They spent the next week gathering evidence. Rosa contacted investigative journalist Maria Santos, who'd written extensively about institutional abuse. The story broke nationally, the Blackwell deception, how one family faked a death to hide a son. The backlash was swift. Protesters gathered outside the mansion gates. Board members from Jonathan's company demanded his resignation. But support came too. Families sharing similar stories, advocates calling for reform. At the press conference, Jonathan stood with Liam and Rosa beside him. I cannot undo 35 years of lies, he told the cameras. But I can ensure the truth is finally heard. My brother was stolen from our family by greed and shame. Today we reclaim his story. Liam, though nervous, spoke briefly. I never forgot having a little brother. I painted pictures of him in my room. Now he's grown up and we can be family again. Dr. Henderson, now retired, was arrested on fraud charges. Pinehaven faced investigation, though Dr. Williams was cleared of wrongdoing. The Blackwell Foundation was established, providing resources for families fighting wrongful commitments. 6 months later, Rosa pushed David's stroller through the mansion's redesigned garden, while Liam worked on a new flower bed. He'd become David's devoted uncle, often reading to the baby or singing lullabies he remembered from childhood. He's getting so big, Liam said, smiling as David reached for a butterfly. He'll grow up knowing his uncle, Rosa replied. No secrets, no lies. Jonathan approached from the house, carrying legal documents. It's official, he announced. Liam's identity has been fully restored. His inheritance, his legal status, everything. Liam shook his head. I don't need money. I just needed family. That evening, as David slept peacefully in his crib, Rosa found a letter that had been slipped under her door. No return address, just her name in elegant script. Inside was a note from Sarah, somehow delivered posthumously through a law firm's time-delayed service. If you're reading this, it means you found the truth I couldn't reveal. Thank you for bringing my family back together. Take care of them all. Sarah. Rosa wiped away tears, then noticed something else in the envelope. Adoption papers, pre-signed by Sarah, naming Rosa as David's legal guardian should anything happen to Jonathan. She found Jonathan in his study, showing him the papers. Sarah wanted to make sure David would be protected, she said softly. Jonathan read the documents, his eyes widening. She trusted you with everything that mattered to her. Will you honor this? More than honor it. I want you to be David's legal guardian now while I'm alive. You're already his mother in every way that counts. As autumn approached, the mansion had transformed. Liam's artwork decorated the walls. David's laughter echoed through halls once filled with secrets. Rosa had moved into the main house, no longer staff but family. Standing in David's nursery one evening, Rosa watched Jonathan rock his son to sleep while Liam sang softly nearby. 3 generations of Blackwell men finally whole. Sarah's hidden mission was complete. The truth had set them all free. Outside, the first snow began to fall, covering the garden where Liam's flowers would sleep until spring, ready to bloom again when the time was right. If the story moved you, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. We're building a community where every voice matters. Like, share, and stay tuned for more stories that challenge, uplift, and inspire.